Brian Lewis,
Present.
and Tim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Let it also be known that Carlos Trejo, the Director of Planning and Community Design Department, I think I just screwed that up.
Planning and Community Development.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
Don Doty, Senior Planner, and online is Bridget Walters. And right now, our council liaison, Missy Waldman, is currently absent, but she should be attending shortly. Oh, there, she just attended, so. Okay, so that being said, I want to welcome everybody to the meeting, and it's kind of exciting times for me. It's the first time being, kind of in person. I know you guys have already had one meeting, so it's a nice change. So look forward to having all the attendees also in person at a later date, but we'll get there one step at a time. So as far as the commission procedures, with each agenda item, we'll be going through a staff report, which will be conducted by Carlos or Dawn. And then we'll bring on panelists to answer questions or comments. And then we'll open it up for public comments that might be on that specific item. We ask you that if you do have a public comment, to raise your hand or note it at the bottom of the screen. And when you come on, we'd like to make sure that you state your name and address for the record. We do also recommend that you keep your comments as brief as possible and try not to be redundant, especially if previous comments have already been made. And we do ask you to limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes, just to respect everybody's time and to make sure we get everybody's opinions heard. Okay, that being said, we'll go on to public comments right now. And these are opportunities for people to express a comment or issue about something that's not on the agenda item. If you have something that's about on the agenda item, we do ask you to please wait until that agenda item is being discussed. Okay, Carlos, do we have any public comments?
Chairman, at this point, I don't see any hands raised. Again, if you'd like to talk to the commission regarding an item outside of those listed on the agenda, if you can just show your hand. Typically, it's located in the lower portion of your monitor on the Zoom meetings.
Okay. That being said, we'll move on to old business. Item A, text amendment regarding Chapter 422, Stormwater Management, Article 4, Review and Approval, Section 422.080, Single Family Residential Development. Carlos?
Chairman, this has been in our May and June agendas regarding discussion. This revision reflects the last discussion from the first meeting in June, in which there was consensus among commission members to authorize that when somebody is building a new subdivision, and that subdivision is required by the Metropolitan Sewer District to provide on-site detention for the subdivision as a whole, that the new homes that would be built within that subdivision would not be required to provide additional on-site detention as currently required under Chapter 422 for all new homes. This will not impact the infill redevelopment or tear down. That's the purpose why we adopted Chapter 422, because many of the homes that were being torn down may not have been part of a subdivision, or were part of a subdivision that was built prior to the Metropolitan Sewer District, or part of a subdivision that did not have any on-site detention for the subdivision as a whole. And the thought was here that if their subdivision is requiring on-site detention that is calculated for full improvements of the properties and the subdivision, requiring the new home to also provide on-site detention on their lot would be double dipping on there, or requiring two levels of on-site detention. Therefore, the commission was in consensus, I believe, to permit some flexibility for new single-family homes that are part of a new subdivision. Now, in the future, if a subdivision, if a new single-family home within one of these subdivisions places an addition or adds on some impervious work, that impervious work would not be subject to this ordinance. They will have to provide on-site detention for any improvements in excess of those of the original home. In addition to that, the conditions the commission discussed should be incorporated as part of the review process in there, where that any easements for the ground surface wells or any of the ground surface wells be placed within an easement. In this case, we're recommending a minimum of 10 foot. That the square footage area of the average house footprint utilized in calculating the size of the stormwater detention systems, again, for the subdivision as a whole, be identified in the final plat. That the subdivision indentures include some language regarding preservation and maintenance of the stormwater easement. And again, noting that any new home that exceeds the average size house footprint that was used in calculating the stormwater detention system for the subdivision as a whole shall provide additional detention on said lot for that excess or that increment. In your packets, you have the staff report. You also have some information provided by a current petitioner who's working with myself and Don in this text amendment, and that's for the Birdie Lane subdivision. They've already received preliminary subdivision plat approval for the 8-lot single-family subdivision off of Old Bonham, just west of Dealman Road. They've already submitted their subdivision improvement plans, preparing to get the site prepped for development. And within your packet, you have a draft of the final subdivision plat. So I'm assuming that the application for the final plat will be coming in soon. That plat will incorporate these conditions along with those indentures. And they provided for you in exhibits to show what they would be looking at in those. So I hope that kind of addresses all the commission's concerns. We do have a representative from the Birdie Lane subdivision team in here that would like to talk to the commission. Beyond that, before introducing them, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions, Chairman. Okay, Mr. Jokers, I'm gonna bring you over as a panelist. If you can identify yourself, have your audio on and your video on, if that would be great.
Hello, Brian Jokers with Elite Development and representing Freeman Homes and the Birdie Lane project. Carlos, also, I think Mike Birding is out there as well. He's the civil engineer on the project. If you could.
Yes, he is. Hold on one second. I didn't recognize.
It's okay.
Mike, you should be transferred over as a panelist and be able to speak. If you can state your name and have your video on, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Well, I'm having trouble with my video. This is Mike Birding with Sterling Engineering. And our company did the civil engineering for the project Birdie Lane.
I guess I really don't have any comments on it. Mike, did you have any concerns with this proposal? I apologize. We just saw this afternoon, so we've reviewed it and looked at it, but I think it will accomplish everything we need. Mike, did you have anything to add on that or any concerns with this?
No, I think it accomplishes what we need, and I think it should work out well. Those swales and things like that will be something that sort of an interactive thing with as you go through plan review that everybody has to address, but
Yep.
The easement gives it a good opportunity to be able to give Carlos and whomever else the power they need to make sure the drainage occurs the way it should.
Sure. I guess the one question I would have is, so if we set the average square footage for the lots, but then say they do lot 1 first, and that ultimate house footprint is less than the average, would there be any flexibility to then use that extra on the next lot because it's looked at as a whole, or would that not be an option or a consideration?
I personally think that's going to get into an administrative nightmare, you know, to be calculating and keeping track of that. That's my gut feeling, and I'm not sure how any members of the commission feel. Yeah. Yeah. So we prefer to stay with the average of that house. Now, Carlos, if they're slightly over that average, then it falls into the same determination like an addition. And it's only if it's over 1,000 square feet would require stormwater detention. Is that correct?
It would be up to the commission to what extent. The way the ordinance is intended is that if the petitioner were to come in with a home that exceeded the average, for them to be prepared to provide on-site detention. If they want to request the commission that it's, let's say if it was over 100 square feet or 200 square feet, they can petition to say that the increment is minor if the commission would waive it. But with the expectation that the commission is not bounded or required to do so.
Right.
So I think it gives some flexibility on both sides if it's a increment that's within reason.
Correct. Does that make sense?
So it sounds like there is a little bit of flexibility. So that sounds good.
Yes. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission to our attendees? No? Anybody else have any further discussion on this item? Carlos, any public comments related to this item?
If there was anybody that would like to speak in regards to this petition application, if you can just show your hand and I'll bring you over to address the commission. And Chairman, at this point, I don't see any.
Okay, do I
I
hear?
do have Councilman Waldman with it.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, Brian Jokers, I thought I heard you ask a question that I'm not so sure got answered. And that if you have house A and house B, and house A is under that measurable, and house B is over that measurable, can you still be okay because you're within 2 lots and those 2 lots together will equal a number, even though one's larger and one is smaller? Did I misunderstand what you were asking?
No, that is what I was asking. If lot 1 was less than the number we set for the average, can that amount that it's less be used then on the next lot for the overage? I guess was kind of my question. So yes, yeah, that was my question on that.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, Missy, I think that the commission's feeling on that is that keeping track of that for the total subdivision is going to be an administrative nightmare. And
Sure.
that we just have to consider each lot individually. And if there's something that's slightly over, it's, not going to be a big problem. If something's considerably, then we're going to want to see some additional something to take care of that overflow.
All right, so that was part of the answer to that question.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I mean, we've got, yeah, we need to be a little flexible in that regard.
And I would also, I think it'd be a problem if you're less than, like, say, 500 square feet, and then you're over 500 square feet with a single residence. Now we're starting to get a little bit unbalanced, and it may not be as equal, because there could be some other potentially stormwater issues, with adjacent houses or neighbors. So I just think it's better to keep it with that average, but give a little bit of flexibility if they're close to that. Does that make sense?
A new kind of a thing.
Yeah. Okay, good, good. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to motion to forward a recommendation to City Council, a text amendment to Chapter 422, Stormwater Management, specifically Section 422.080, Single Family Residential Development, as noted in the staff memorandum dated July 1, 2021, subject to any staff conditions or amendments as approved by the commission.
Do I hear a second? Motion's been made by Carol Wagner and seconded by Brian Lewis. Carlos, are we still calling roll call vote? I think we need to. since
Yeah,
we're-
I think for, given the Zoom and the size of the.
Yeah, I understand.
if you
I just
don't
want to
mind.
make sure.
Okay. Commissioner Spiegelglass. Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
Chairman Jurgel,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously 5-0. The next step in this process will be the scheduling the text amendment before a city council meeting, and I'll coordinate with the city manager on those dates and get back to Mr. Bordering and Mr. Jokers.
Thank you guys for attending. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Chairman, I asked if I can just have 1 second here.
No worries.
All right.
Okay, we'll move on to item B, which is 9316 Olive Boulevard. It's the Lococo Fine Arts Publishing. Petition is a site plan, community design, and concept stormwater management plan for a 789 square foot commercial addition. Petitioner is Paul Boyer with Civil Engineering Design Consultants. Property owner is Robert Lococa, trustee of Robert Lococa Revocable Trust. Carlos?
Chairman, we have Lococo Fine Publishing is the art studio located on Olive Boulevard. You primarily see them by that 9320 building, the one-story building up by the street that has a gallery along that window. They also own the building that used to be a hairstyling place immediately to the west. They also own a property that is on addressed off of Olive Boulevard behind the dentist office that's up by the street. So they actually don't have any frontage on the Olive, but they have an access easement that goes back there. The building's been used for service office type of uses at least over 20 years in there. Lococo Fine Arts has purchased that building and they use that for storage. They'd like to add an addition here at the southeast corner of the property. I'm going to flip a slide and you should be able to see that. It's just a rectangular addition that goes parallel with the carport that is on the site. And there the addition is for storage of artwork, and therefore they did minimize that there are no windows on that building, but they did bring the brickwork to kind of break up that elevation. It's a very low rise addition. It doesn't extend above the roof line of the existing building. You have the full sets of plans there. In there, we have met with them with the assistant fire chief regarding access on the facility, along with the building inspector to talk about the use and accessibility of the facilities, and there are things that they'll be working through the permitting process. Outside of that, again, the addition, because of its location behind a property that fronts Olive and the addition being in the back of the building, the staff is recommending approval as submitted. Be glad to answer any specific questions, and this is being cognizant that the purpose of the addition is for the storage of artwork, and therefore that's why they're trying to minimize any exterior outside light from going in.
Is it gonna be attached to the building window?
Yes, yes. Mhm.
So no gap there.
No.
Any other questions or comments? Carlos, do we have a petitioner?
Yes, I'm gonna bring over the applicants. Bear with me. Yeah, I'm trying to bring them over. There we go. And Chairman, I'm having a problem trying to promote I believe, Matt over.
I apologize. I accidentally raised my hand. There was no intention.
We can hear you okay, Matt, if you're all right, if there is any comments regarding the application.
No, there's no comments. That was unintentional to raise my hand. I apologize.
Okay.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions for the attendee? Okay, well, Matt. Thank you for attending. So do I hear a petition? Or not a petition? A motion. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Kara.
I would like to motion to approve the petition for site plan, new design, and concept stormwater management plan review to authorize a 768 square foot addition as presented before the commission and noted in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Development dated July 1, 2021, subject to staff conditions noted therein.
Do I hear a second? Okay, motion's been made by Carol Wagner, seconded by Tim Spiegelglass. Carlos, you please call the vote.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner Spiegelglass, Commissioner Wagner,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell,
Approved.
and the motion passes unanimously 5-0.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll move on to new business. And Carlos, do you want me to give you some time or you're okay?
I think we're set this time around.
Okay. So this is the first one of kind of I guess, side-by-side houses, or is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so item A, new business is 1113 Collingwood Drive. Petition type is a site plan, community design and concept storm water management plan review for a new single-family home. Petitioner is Andy Cohen with Kennerly Custom Homes. Property owners, Kennerly Custom Homes. Carlos?
Chairman, this is the second new home along Collingwood, on the south side of Collingwood, just north of Olivet Terrace Apartments. On the slide, the home at the far left, 1111 Collingwood was recently completed and I believe is occupied. And there the home in the middle, 113 Collingwood Drive, is the one that you are acting on at this second. And then the home to the right at 1115 Collingwood is next on your agenda. All three homes have been developed and designed by the petitioner's team. That hasn't changed. And this is Kennerly Properties, and I believe their architect has been Belusky and Associates, who they've used. The issues that staff, again, in accordance with the design guidelines, one is that given the lot widths, they are subject to site plan review and approval, which means that we have to be considerate of external or internal effects of the property beyond those just related to design. And then we assess the new home in accordance with the city's design guidelines. And it's the staff role to identify if at any point the guidelines are not met, so that those items can be discussed amongst the commission members. And in this case, I believe in your application packets, it indicates the three primary items that staff is noting. One is, of course, the front entry garage. Now, given the narrowness of these properties, the commission in the past has been flexible to allow or authorize a front entry garage as long as it's not the primary protruding portion of the home. And you can see, given the property to the far left, the commission's found the design acceptable. Second is elevation articulation, which is we go to the side elevations. Given the narrowness of the side yard setbacks, the first level on the left side elevation doesn't have any window articulation, but they try to break the building elevation with a band. And finally, if a home has less than 50% brick on a front elevation, it's staff has to bring that to the commission's attention, again, for discussion and review, in which this home does not. The last thing that staff noted on this house, so there's they're contradictory elevations. The front elevation is to illustrate that the home was going to have a full hipped ends, where the rear elevation kind of shows that they're kind of clipped, and you'll see that in the next petition application. I think it was just a minor error, but these, this is more rectangular and with corners, as opposed to, you see the corners cut off here in there. The petitioner did engage with the subdivision trustees. You have a letter of support from the trustee president in there. You also have a letter from a resident expressing concern about the brick. Outside of that, the staff doesn't have any other questions or comments. In there, the home reflects traditionally what we've authorized or approved in the past, both for Collingwood and other narrow streets, including Cherry Tree and Harvest Lane. Be glad to answer any questions, Chairman.
Any members of the commission have any questions or comments? I only got one question. And Carlos, and I'm kind of curious about the street elevation, because I'm not familiar specifically with this site, but it does look like the elevation of these houses keeps rising. 111, then 113 is higher, than 115 is higher, and then it seems to drop back down. Is that the natural grade of that street, or is that byproduct of these new houses?
Good question. Let me check real quickly if we have that information available topographically.
It was kind of more pronounced when you had all, the other residents that house brought up.
Bear with me. I think the elevation does rise as you're going down the street. The hilltop. Yeah, so the elevations, the lowest elevations, and yes, that is correct, because the house here at the end, there was some concerns about being the house at the far end, and the amount of future stormwater it could receive in the future when we were doing the review on this home.
Okay, so that's more natural. Okay, good.
Sorry about that. I didn't
No
have the answer right
worries.
away.
No worries. Then the only other comment that I had, and it just seems like all three of those houses look very similar. And are there different color changes between them, or anything that would make them a little bit more distinct between each other? I don't know if anybody on the commission shares the same view.
Also curious if the builders responded to the letter about the brick facing. That's when that was a request. Did that come up when 1111 was built? Was it did not? Is that true based off the? Is 1111 on the Google Maps, or is it too new?
It's too new. We do have the plans, the plan set. Bear with me one second. But yeah, I mean, it was part of the commission's discussion.
I mean, I think it's a nice looking design. Don't get me wrong, but I just think to have three right in a row like that.
Maybe it needs a little more variety.
Yeah,
Okay, bear with me 1 second. And I believe you have, and before you in your screens, the elevation of 111 or 1111. That's the one that that at the farthest left. We're at the beginning of the street, second to this. There you go. Sorry.
So do you know if there's any color variation between the two, or are they all using the exact same building materials?
The material, the overall material is the same. Regarding colors, though, that's not information that we generally take a look at in the detailed construction specs. The representative of the petitioner or one of the architects is on, and it's a question we can ask.
That'd be
and,
great. Right now, does anybody else on the commission have any questions for Carlos? Seeing none, Carlos, I think let's bring
Okay.
on the petitioner.
We go back and okay, Katie Neeson Cook, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And Miss Neeson Cook, if you can just identify yourself and if you can have your video on, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you, Miss. Katie, are you on? We see you, but we don't hear anything.
Hear me okay now?
Yes, yes, we can now.
Katie Neeson Cook. I work for Jim Bolesky Architects. I am here on behalf of Andy Cohen, who is out of town. As far as color variation, I don't know what colors Andy is planning to use, but I can certainly discuss that with him. I also know that he has sold both of these properties, and these are the elevations that the buyers have selected, which is part of why 1111 and 1115 look so similar. We did try to make some variations for 1113 so that they weren't all exactly the same house.
Okay. There was a comment made by one of the neighbors requesting more brick, especially because the street in the neighborhood typically all has full brick homes. So I think that might be good to have that same discussion with Andy. You know.
Okay, I think Andy was at least somewhat open to that. I would need to discuss that with him as far as exactly how much we add.
That could actually give some more variation between the houses.
That's true.
Past is they've been generally, guidance to try to make sure deviating drastically. And on the flip side, if we push in the past decade, kind of dictated that we should have
I don't think we have a bright line. that tells
in
us
our
one way or the other.
science.
Right.
Because we couldn't create one.
No, and I agree. I'm just
You
curious.
just have to use your judgment.
Has this come up before? Maybe it's usually not well, and I'm thinking like the homes on them, the large ones, and we just looked at it, like, is it going to be 10 homes that are exactly the same, but they're all very different?
I don't think that's been brought to us.
It
We've
hasn't,
only
but
been
it's
seeing
a good
generic,
example.
but that is definitely a good example,
I don't think it's done before us in quite the same way.
3 in a row.
Yeah.
I think we've seen similar types of homes, but they're typically spread out, in different areas. So. Okay, Katie, I think, I'm not sure, I think we'd like to get some of those questions or, this discussion and have some of that discussion with Andy, I think before we would approve both of these homes.
Mr. Chairman, I definitely would.
Okay, okay, great.
Yeah, I'd really like to talk about the brick especially.
Yes, yes. Is that okay, Katie? We're gonna and kind of, what's the term? Defer these until the next meeting.
Okay, so that would be the July 15th.
15th.
I will let Andy know.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate you being on.
Yep, thank you.
Carlos, I think, was there a public comment? Katie, actually, why don't you hold on real quick?
Okay.
Because I think somebody else had their hand raised, or maybe that was.
That was her. Is there anybody that would like to speak regarding this petition, 1113 Collingwood Drive or 1115 Collingwood Drive? If you can show your hand again, the hand symbol is located at the lower part of your monitor. Chairman, if you can just give us a minute just to
No
make sure.
worries, no worries.
All right, Chairman, there are none.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and we'll defer these to the next meeting. Appreciate your time, Katie.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to item, item B, but we're also going to defer on that item because of the same issues as item A. And then we'll move on to item C, which is 11 Forsythia Lane.
Mr. Chairman, I need
But-
to recuse myself on this issue.
That sounds fine. Okay, Carol Wagner's recusing herself for this one, but this is a petition type for a community design review for a new single-family home located at 11 Forsythia Lane. The petitioner is Jeff Day of Jeff Day and Associates. The property owner is Noach Palatnik. And I think, Carlos, if we can give a little bit of moment for Carol, because I think she wants to attend via
Sure,
Zoom.
that'd be no problem.
Yes, it has to be unanimous, decision. Say it right.
All right, Chairman, are you set?
Were we set?
Yes.
Okay,
She's
good,
ready.
good, good. Okay, so Carlos, are you ready? I think I introduced it already, so if you're ready to go ahead with the report, that'd be great.
Chairman, this item was scheduled, of course, in our last commission meeting, but that was canceled. And given the excess time, we did meet with the petitioner and their architect. So the plans that are before you have been revised from those that were submitted at the July 17th meeting, which of course was not held in there. In essence, this is a single family property at 11 Forsythia Lane located in the Warsaw Views subdivisions off of Grandview, just on the west side of town. The property is number 11 Forsythia. It's kind of nestled in between the block on the south side. It's an internal lot within that block. It is a legal lot of record and it is compliant with the city's zoning regulations. So it's 100 feet in over 100 feet in width. It's well over 150 feet in depth and has an area in excess of 15,000 square feet. That being said, it's not subject to site plan review. The process for site plan review is when the city is able to consider the impact of a proposed construction that has both internally within the site itself and externally how it impacts the surrounding properties. And in this case, this petition is not subject to site plan review. Under our ordinance, before any new home is constructed, it does have to go through community design review and is subject to subject to stormwater management plan review. And in this case, they have submitted both. And in this case, under our community design review procedures, we use the Olivet Residential Redevelopment and Design Guidelines. There are two parts to those guidelines. There's the introductory part that identifies and establishes why we go through this process. And then there are the design principles which we go and evaluate from a staff perspective. They are guidelines, they're not ordinance requirements. And it is the role of staff to identify when when a design has any conflict or doesn't meet the guidelines. And then it is left to the commission as a consensus or collaboration to discuss the individual principle and make a decision whether it be appropriate or inappropriate for the area or the surroundings. And in this case, staff has reviewed the proposed new home, the home structure in itself, and find it in full compliance with the spirit and intent of the community design review design principles, but questions the setback that's proposed for the new home. The original petition had the house set back 125 feet, and it was staff's opinion that that would impact the overall character of the street, the neighborhood, and the adjacent properties by having a setback that far from the street roadway. That would break up the rhythm or continuity of the streetscape being set back as far. The petitioner has revised the petition and brought the proposed home closer towards the road. They have the deepest lot, and they're proposing the home to be approximately, I believe it's 80 feet from the street right away. So that places it approximately at the back end of the rear of the property to the west at number 9 would be their front door and such. We tried to impose this in an illustration to kind of show the revised petition. Remember, the former petition had the house further to the back. One of the rationales or the reasons was that it would avoid the removal of 3 mature trees along the front of the property, which in your site renderings, you'll clearly see the 3 trees shown in there. By moving the home closer, it will now require the elimination of those 3 trees. And that we tried to provide an overlay with the contours with the adjacent property information. Don put that together for us here, so you could see a little bit closer than from the county aerial to an aerial of their site plan kind of imposed with the 80-foot setback shown here and how it would fit in proportion to the 2 adjacent lots. So basically, the new home and set would be directly behind the old existing home, probably set back about 10 feet. Again, it's closer than the original petition of the 125 feet. And staff would leave that to the commissioners, bringing it to the commission's attention to have a discussion of whether that setback still maintains a streetscape neighborhood consistency and addresses the 2 adjacent neighboring properties in a meaningful and respectful way in terms of its design. That is what the process is for. Again, that setback does not represent the violation of any city codified code. It is purely a design or an aesthetic issue that would be in discussion with the commission. We have what we call minimum setback requirements, where we don't allow a home to be any closer to a street than what would be identified. And in this case, I believe for this subdivision, it's 25 or 30 feet. Most of the homes along the street here are 40 feet back. There is some variation. We do have one house that is close to 50 feet back. This home that's being proposed would have an 80-foot setback, front yard setback, and that's what the commission is discussing. Again, that 80-foot front yard setback does not represent a violation of the code. If there are indentures in place that have those restrictions, those are private covenants that the subdivision would be responsible for enforcing. From the city's perspective, though, we're more concerned about the streetscape and the impact that it has on here. Again, the home has been brought closer, about 45 feet from the previous petition. And really that is the only point of discussion that that staff brings to you. Overall, I really like the home design the material uses, the elevation articulations. I think everything else is pretty well set. Be glad to answer any specific questions. We do have both the designer, the architect, and the property owner in attendance.
I have a comment, but I'll wait. Is there anybody on the commission that has any questions or comments for Carlos?
I can get through Google. Yes, sir. Bear with me 1 second.
I'm sure we can ask the owner. There is for the desire to be 80 feet versus, you know, 25 to 40. Seems like there was some adjustment made from this why it desires to have such a far set.
Yeah, it's still,
Still
I think
significant.
I think it's a better improvement from where it was before, but I'm also a little concerned that it's still
It stands
too
out.
far back.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, and the neighbors also, seems like multiple neighbors have expressed concern. Coming forward probably addresses some of it, but.
Right.
Real quickly, Mr. Spiegelglass, and I think you should be able to see the little mouse pointer. This is the existing home, number 11. There's a tree that's identified in your site plan that's in the front, but back here are the 3 trees that you'll see also reflected in their elevations here. Those 2 there, or in the renderings, I'm sorry.
Right. I think there was a comment, if the owner had a comment that they didn't want to be on the footprint of the existing building. And
Concrete and,
I'm actually sure I didn't quite understand it. It was something that they were afraid that it would potentially cause cracking in their foundation.
water. Really ground.
And I was, but I didn't quite understand that myself.
Okay.
But before we go on, does anybody else want to have any comments or any opinions right now? Okay, Carlos, can we bring on the
Sure.
petition?
Mr. Day, I'm going to promote you to panelist. And Mr. Paletnik, I am also going to promote you to panelist. And again, if you can both introduce yourselves and have your video on, it'd be greatly appreciated. And Chairman, I'll just note for those who are in attendance, there will be an opportunity to speak before the commission after the commission has a discussion with the applicant and the petitioners and with staff. There will be an opportunity for the public to comment to the commission afterwards. Thank you. Chairman.
Carlos, while we're waiting. While we're waiting, you mentioned that there was a house that had a 50-foot setback. Where was that? I didn't see it.
Based on the measurements we had for number 19, they have a 48.9 foot setback.
Okay.
Now we're measuring off an aerial, so we're going to be off plus or minus 3 feet.
30? The 3.
Plus or minus 3
3,
feet. I mean,
3, okay.
I'm sorry.
Understood.
And it's interesting, and before the petitioners talk, because in the old code requirements we have before we adopted the current standard, which is reflective of what the subdivision setback is within the recorded plat, which none of these homes, all these homes are further back from that plat. The old standards were used to have to get an average of homes within a certain distance on each side. And what that did, and what's reflective here, is it pushed houses further back and back and back. And that's why when we look at the streetscape, there's not a defined consistency that everybody is set back the same standard. There are some variations, not significant variations, but there are some variations of 5 to 10 feet
Right.
as you go through there.
Interesting.
This would probably exceed about another, looking at the house in front of them, it could be 20 feet.
Mm, Yeah. I
20
think
to
more
30?
than
Because they
that.
said 80 feet back and the one on the right is 60.
And that's the next. Yeah, it's
And then those are
easily.
closer, so we're talking about 40. But it's interesting because while it's set back, it is such a private street. So it's not like it's viewed other than the community. really.
All right.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting.
Do you have any?
Yeah, Jeff, glad you are here. I didn't realize you jumped on yet. Do you have any comments? We were discussing the setback and expressing some concerns that maybe, or at least we had about that it still might be too far back. Is Jeff on?
Yeah.
Are you talking to Jeff Day or another Jeff?
Mr. Day.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so sorry I don't have the camera so you can see my beautiful face. We're actually set up here in the office to have these virtual meetings for sketch and design meetings with a massive 32-inch tablet. But anyway, hopefully you don't need to see me talk, but my client, Noah Palatnik, provided a letter, I believe, that kind of outlined his desires and needs and whatnot regarding the house being set back. And, you know, part of what I see, and this is without regard to his letter, is an opportunity to, you know, when we put it further back, we had a better opportunity for trying to save trees, but also give it more of a park-like setting. And because of the depth of the lot, give privacy not only to Mr. Palatnik, but also the neighbors to the adjacent lots. And, you know, I understood Carlos' concern for sure. And that's why we held an impromptu meeting, if you will, on site to talk through, you know, a healthy medium, right? A meeting in the middle, if you will. And so that's why we arrived at the location we have right now.
He made a comment about that he wanted to be 10 feet away from the current house because of the concrete rubble. I was not aware of any issues with building on and over an existing, you know, foundation, or, well, once the foundation's removed, that it was caused cracking. I mean, is that in your experience?
It really depends on how you set the foundation. So, you know, once I mean, I never went into the existing home, so I don't understand the soils conditions that you may have caused some kind of settling or whatnot that Mr. Palatnik may have seen. But, you know, the other reality to that is the backfill really, depending on where it falls inside of that existing foundation, you're looking at, you know, engineering and compacting the fill. Carlos, is there a way to kind of show more of a translucent version of that site plan overlay with the house, the existing house below it?
Are you talking about this one?
That's pretty good, yeah. So, you know, you start running into issues with that, the driveway and whatnot being, in essence, part of the open foundation excavation, in my opinion, where if that's not, you know, if you were to move this house forward is what you really need to kind of look at. You can see how the driveway still allows us to kind of get around the house. If we move that house forward, let's call it 20 or 25 feet, part of that driveway is now over what is currently kind of an excavated area. And so we're asking for concrete issues and whatnot with that drive apron, which would be kind of a bigger concern to me than maybe a cracking foundation, but the cracking foundation, you know, we would need to, I guess, once the old house is uprooted, we'd have to do some soils testing and whatnot, see what kind of bearing capacity we have. And then again, still, we'd have to engineer the soil compaction as we fill that back in.
I mean, we've done so many tear downs and, yeah, yeah, this happens all the time. I'm not quite, not quite understanding. Yeah. Tim, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'm not sure, you'd have to fill up that no matter what, yes, you'd have to compact it, but no matter what, you're gonna have to get compaction. No matter where you put it on that.
Right.
Can you guys see though, like where our garage is, if that winds up over a full basement? I mean, that, you can't do a frost wall anymore, right? So are you guys understanding what I'm explaining there?
No, not at all.
Okay, so Carlos, can you show them the floor plan? Maybe that'll help them understand
Yes, 1 second.
the main floor, if you would, please.
Yeah, that's true.
And sorry, Carlos, I'm probably gonna make you jump around a little bit here.
Not a problem. 1 second here. There's the basement floor plan.
Okay, if you could show the first floor, if you don't mind. Okay, you guys see where the garage is located?
Yes.
Okay, so as we move the whole house forward, that garage is going to be over what is currently basement on the existing house.
Okay.
And so there's either a whole lot of backfill, which if not compacted correctly, these things start settling, or he's forced to, in essence, buy pre-stressed structural hollow core slabs and have a basement under his garage, which adds currently with COVID pricing, if you will, somewhere in the range of $30,000 to $40,000. And so we would have to, in essence, engineer the soil underneath it, as well as the engineered soil that would be outside of that at the apron, because the garage and the drive apron falls over the basement. So if Carlos, if you wouldn't mind going back to the translucent site plan, if you will. So imagine taking that footprint, moving it forward to 20 or 25 feet. And now all of that is kind of over what is currently kind of basement area. So it starts to exacerbate what we're trying to do, and it makes the costs, honestly, of the garage pretty excessive, and the driveway, I guess, at that point as well.
But Jeff, so you're not going to compact the fill for the removed house?
But what you're asking me to do is backfill the entire thing and sheets foot roll it in 3-foot lifts to get it to a 2,000 PSF, or backfill the entire thing with rock and compact and vibrate it down in 4-foot lifts, or in essence, because the garage is over what's already completely excavated at basement level, put hollow core slabs. And again, hollow core slabs are excessively expensive to park, a car on, if you will. So does he gain a basement underneath that? Yeah, but he's not really interested in, spending that kind of money.
Yeah, I don't think we're asking you to
Over the
do this.
existing.
This doesn't sound right to me. I mean, I feel like this is done all the time where we tear down a house and put another house right over the existing, foundation. And correct me if
You're
I'm wrong.
absolutely right. I don't think that the garage though falls over a basement in most of those cases.
Collinswood. We're just looking at those houses, I believe.
Did you say most of them do? It's hard to hear.
garages are front facing. Yeah, but I don't think I don't know. I guess I'm not following this. Tim, are you following it?
I understand it. I understand the concerns are about it. I'm trying to think of when, truthfully, I turned on my house, and I'm 99% positive we had to fill in where my garage is on it right now. I don't see it being much of a difference than normal ones unless you go and put the same size house on the same lot when you tear it down.
Carlos, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
I can't hear anything that's being said right now by whomever is speaking.
All right, here we go.
Sorry about that, Jeff. I apologize about that. What I was saying was, I was just thinking about when I built my house, I'm pretty sure I had to fill in my garage as well, when we did it. I don't see it much different than most of the houses that we look at. I understand on, when you get a bigger footprint of a house that you tore down, you can maybe save that garage by putting it on the exterior of that bigger footprint. So you don't have to do as much soils work on that.
Okay, well,
I'm kind of curious, Carlos, the letters from the neighbors were expressing concern when it was 125 feet. And it's been, looks like an approach has been made to make it better at 80. Whether we agree from design aesthetics, I'm curious if the neighbors have reacted to the 80-foot.
I would assume, I would think that some of them have seen it, but there was, those changes were just posted last night after
okay.
the change was
I mean,
received.
that's what I'm just kind
No.
of curious.
yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, whether it's what I would choose or not is almost irrelevant. I think if the neighbors feel 80 is a good compromise, I could,
You might be able to get. on board.
I get aboard, especially, I think I'd feel different if this was Olive and it was like, we're driving by and it's like front, whoop, but
Yeah.
this is a very remote, street. So
Right.
I guess I'd be curious what the neighbors.
Kind of more like what the neighbors, how they're.
I mean, it's a significant change from 125 to 80.
Yeah, it's
so-
much better. I
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree. It doesn't shock me as much. So
Right.
I don't know if people are willing to kind of gather what the neighbors think and.
Well, do we have any public comments? Is there any, first of all, before we bring on any public
Mr.
comments,
Palante?
does anybody else have any questions or comments for Mr. Day?
I don't know if Mr. Palante had any comments himself. He's also on.
Oh, he is? Great.
Yes.
If you would like to speak, Mr. Palatnik, please do.
Sorry about that. I was
No
muted.
problem.
And I'm sorry, it's pretty loud here and I didn't plan on talking. But back to what I was talking about, the foundation. No matter what you do to an old house, when you tear it down, there will be rubble left underground. That rubble creates air pockets, which get filled with water when it rains. When you have water sitting right next to your foundation, it tends to end up leaking into your house, maybe not in 5 years or 10 years, but it will end up finding its way into your basement. Personally, I would prefer to have my house further down.
Mr. Palatnik, there's some excessive background noise and we're
I
having a
understand.
real hard time hearing you.
I understand. I'm at a restaurant, so sorry about that.
No,
Oh.
that's right.
That's really all that I had to say. Right? The neighbors expressed their concern with the house being set way far back. I was trying really to keep the lot intact and putting my house on the lot instead of making the lot fit my house. So I didn't want to cut down any huge trees. The trees there are really big. I understand their concerns, so I suggested to move the house much closer to the street, but still not being right on top or the whole place.
The only thing I'd like to mention is, you mentioned about the groundwater, being in those voids and potentially freezing, but if that's below the frost line, it's not going to freeze. So even if there is moisture down there in winter time, Correct me if I'm wrong, Tim. I'm not sure if you share the same concerns.
Yeah, I think he's concerned about that. He has to fill that whole thing up, but.
Yeah. Right. 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 Okay. Well, thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. Unless you had something else that you'd like to add.
No, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So Carlos, I think now is if there's any other people or that have questions, we can bring it open to the public comments.
Okay, I'm gonna bring in each person individually, and I'm gonna go on the length of time that the hands have been up is the process. So Ms. Wagner, I am going to promote you to panelist, followed by Ms. Tidball, Mr. Cohagen, Jessica Kay, and then Mr. Smith. Ms. Wagner. And again, we'd appreciate it if you can state your name and address for the record. And if you can have your video on, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Carlos, I don't see her on.
Yeah,
We're having a little trouble.
Ms. Wagner.
Carol, can you unmute?
Bear with us, guys. We think we're getting this Zoom down, but we always run into a little bit of difficulties every now and then.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring Brooke Tidball.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can. Ms. Tidball will bring you up right after Ms. Wagner.
Okay. Okay, my name is Carol Wagoner, and I am at 11 Forsythia, number 7 Forsythia, I'm sorry. And that was just right around the corner, so the back of my lot faces the property in question. I strongly oppose the proposed revised site design for 11 Forsythia. The petition clearly is contrary to the Olivet design guidelines. And while we know that this sometimes is necessary, in this case it is not necessary, nor does it respect the rest of the houses on the street. One of the beautiful aspects of our subdivision design is the large area of green space we all enjoy as the rear of our properties abut. The subdivision indentures help to keep this view in place by limiting the height of any fences within the subdivision. When I now sit on my back deck, I have the pleasure of seeing a park-like area of uninterrupted green space. It is in large part what makes our neighborhood one of the prettiest in all of that, in my opinion. This has not protected common ground, nor is it a public park, but it has survived since the subdivision was built in the early 1950s, because each of us has respected our neighbors and purposefully not constructed sheds to block our neighbor's view or put in fencing over 3 feet. This new home as proposed would clearly be an obstruction for almost the entire subdivision. The house is still set back so far, it does not come close to the frontages of the other homes on the street. It does not respect anything about our neighborhood design and would be very harmful to all of us on this side of Forsythia. This is a lot of damage to a lot of homes. As you know, I'm a professional planning consultant with 30 years of experience and have served on the city's planning commission for about 30 years. I have spent most of my career working on redevelopment projects. In all that time, working with engineers and architects, I have never heard any of them say they could not place a structure on or near the footprint of the building that was being torn down. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this so far is that the developer has not met with those of us in the subdivision who are impacted by this proposal. Even though he was concerned enough to modify his original proposal, there was no attempt made to contact me, discuss my concerns, and to work to address them. As far as I know, none of my neighbors impacted by this proposal have been contacted either. No attempt to gather our input, no attempt to hear our concerns, and no attempt to perhaps modify this design, even though the petitioner had to know we would have serious concerns. I strongly urge you to oppose this petition as submitted.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Wagner. Carlos?
All right. Bear with me. Okay, Brooke Tidball, I am going to transfer you over to panelist. Again, if you can state your name and address, and if you can utilize your video, it would be greatly appreciated.
Hello. So my name is Brooke Tidball and I live at 9726 Grandview. And I just want to reinforce everything that Carol just said. I agree with all of what she said. But I also want to express my concern is very much for the trees in the neighborhood and the canopy. You know, the roots of the trees stretch to the drip line of the tree. So if you think of how tall the tree is and how wide it spreads out, the roots spread out just as widely as the tree itself, the drip line of the tree. So that's 20 or 30 feet. And we have a substantial and very beautiful canopy here in this neighborhood. So even with the revised plans, that's going to destroy several trees, not only in the yard of 11 Forsythia, but also in the neighboring yards. Their drip line stretches out into the area that, is expected to be excavated for the new build, and their root systems will be destroyed by that. We have a beautiful ecosystem here with the trees. We have owls, we have hawks, we have so much wildlife, and just so much joy that we gain from the trees. My concern is, with how much of that is going to be destroyed by setting the house back this far from the road, even at 85 feet.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Tidball. Sorry.
Mr. Cohagen, I am going to promote you to panelist. And again, if you can state your full name and address, and if you can utilize your video, it would be greatly appreciated.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, sir.
I have my camera on. I don't know if there's another way to, let me see, share screen, raise hand, record participant, start video, unmute. I don't think I have my video covered by any means. Is there anything I need to do to be seen? I'm glad to do it, but as long as you're hearing me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, we can hear you clearly. The video issue would be on your side. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, I don't see what I can do about the video though. I have it. It says start video. Let's see. There we go.
There we go. Good job.
Nothing like start video, right? Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask your indulgence just a little bit. I'm kind of hoarse from being sick last week.
Sure.
And we did an 11th hour change in this plan last night. So I had to make a little bit of accommodation in my prepared remarks. So just please bear with me just a little bit.
No worries. Can you state your name and address for the record,
Yes,
please?
sir. This is David Colhagen. I live at 27 Forsythia Lane, and I share about 100 feet of boundary with number 11 Forsythia in the backyard. Okay, so here's my prepared statement. I cannot support this development plan as submitted. There are 33 homes in Warson View subdivision number 1. 8 of these share a common wooded back lot with number 11. The plan for this new construction is set back into the lot 85 feet, while all the other homes in the neighborhood are set back closer to 40 feet. That's twice the setback distance. To draw language from the City of Olivet Residential Development and Design Guidelines, which the owner of number 11 was asked by the City of Olivet to respect and abide by. The plan fails to take into consideration and respect the existing character of the houses and neighborhood. It is out of step with the context and design features of the neighborhood into which it is being introduced with respect to location, building materials and architecture, and it breaks the context of the streetscape and neighboring homes. It is unharmonious and incompatible with its context. It fails to complement the character of the neighborhood. It fails to respect or preserve the appeal, attractiveness, and value of the neighborhood, and it ignores the prevailing neighborhood features. Furthermore, it fails to show sufficient respect for the privacy and enjoyment of the backyards of the existing homes in the inner loop formed by Forsythia Lane and Grandview Boulevard, comprising the aforementioned 8 properties that share a view of the backyard area. The plan is to build this house essentially in the middle of everybody's backyard, robbing all of its neighbors of an unobstructed green view, which they have enjoyed for, in the case of one next door neighbor, 66 years, and in my case, 22 years, and in my estimation, substantially decreasing the value of my home and property. My property abuts the number 11 property and is contiguous with it for at least the last 100 feet of each of our properties. My primary concern about this development is the strikingly non-conforming length of the setback from the street. I'm unwilling to agree to have such a house built virtually in my backyard. Uh-oh, am I still on?
Yes.
Okay. My concern is not just for this property, but for the precedent it would set for someone to deviate even further from the setback norms in this subdivision. And I just want to quickly mention what's already been mentioned, and that is the concerns and arguments that I read in the letter last night from Mr. Palatnik about the rubble has not been a concern for the 9 other tear downs in this subdivision alone, which were completely cleared of rubble and built and signed off on by the City of Olivet. And I think the City of Olivet would take great exception if the suggestion was that those foundations were not sound. And if the builder wants to preserve trees, then he'll build his home as close to the footprint of the existing property as possible. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Carlos? Next.
Yes, 1 second.
Mr. Palatnik, give us, let's go through all the comments from the general public, and then we'll come back.
Okay. Jessica K, I'm going to transfer you over from attendee to panelist. If you can state your name and address, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you can have the video on.
You're muted still.
Yep, sorry. Hello, my name is Jessica Kozian. I'm on number 2 Forsythia. I'm in part of that inner ring, and actually I'm sitting in my living room right now, and I can look out my window to where this new house will be built. I do really appreciate what the Planning and Design Committee does with approving different styles of houses. I actually think the style of the house fits well within what the City of Olivet has been doing recently with everything, and it provides us a unique non-cookie cutter scape of houses. My concern is with the setback. Yes, it has been revised from 125 to 80-foot setback. It still sits far enough back that it hits the back of the 2 houses almost that it would abut. And also, when I was looking at the plans that Carlos brought up of the lot lines that we had, of the 2 lot lines that are on the other side, so David's backs up to the back 100 feet, but the other 2 are set back front 100 feet. If we build this house at this setback, number 15 and number 17 actually would have very difficulty moving back any further if they were to tear it down. Therefore, when we move it back, it really does affect the setback and the feeling of the street that we have, because your 15, 17, and 19 really don't have much play to push their houses back. I know number 11 does, and number 9 could maybe move back a little bit, but then it will really change and set a precedence for what we have. So when looking at even an 80-foot setback, it will still significantly impact the way we have a view of our block.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I have one more hand here, Chairman.
No worries.
Mr. Smith, I'm going to transfer you from attendee to panelist. And again, if you can state your name and address for the record, and if you can utilize your video, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Did it work? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
sir.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Greg Smith. I'm at 15 Forsythia. On the lot to the east of the proposed new house. So we share, I guess it would be 200 feet of housing between us, or the line, the lot. As I had in my email to Carlos on June the 17th, just a few issues. Just like everybody else, I completely disagree with the setback at 125 feet, as well as at the 85 foot or 80 feet level. I believe it should be at the standard where the rest of the houses are, approximately 40 feet back. I also have concerns if now that the proposed house is being moved to the 85 feet location setback, if anybody's been to this area when there's a large storm, the water runs from the west side from Carol Wagner's house down is a slight grade and comes, it's going to go exactly where the new house is proposed being built, 85 feet. And my concern, my biggest concern now is the water runoff coming down the hill is going to either have to go in front of the new house or behind it. And if it goes in the front, it's going to send that water directly in toward my basement, which would be unacceptable. If the house was built at the normal setback, we wouldn't have any issues with that because the ground is already laid out for the water to run down and hit the sewer drainage system that was put into the development a few years ago. And I also have a concern that whenever the construction starts, you talked about the 3 trees in the backyard. Given the location of the house, even it was at the 40-foot level back, is somebody else already mentioned about the drip line. The roots are going to get damaged. There's a large pine tree that is between my house and the new house. And I believe it is going to get damaged, and that tree will probably end up falling on my house at some point in time because of the construction of the new house. So either way, that tree probably needs to come down specifically because this house is being built. And we don't want any other damage to houses because of the new development going in. So I do oppose even the 85-foot setback. I believe it does need to be moved forward to get in the same vicinity as the other houses on the street. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think now Mr. Palatnik wanted to kind of have, he had his hand raised too. So maybe we
Yes.
can address some of the neighbor comments that the neighbors have.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to say that I deeply regret if this has upset any of my future neighbors. I really love this neighborhood. I have siblings who live in this neighborhood, and the sole reason I moved there is because they recommended this neighborhood and the people who live there. So anything that I can do to make sure my neighbors are happy is definitely in my interest. The reason that I had my house set 125 foot from the street, which I understand is extreme, is because if you would visit this lot, the existing home is very small, okay? And if I would to build my house in the same location, I wouldn't be cutting 3 trees, I would be actually cutting 4 trees. If you think about the driveway as well, 4 very large trees would be cut down if I would build it in the same location as the existing house. I did not want to cut any tree. So this is why originally I set it in the middle of the lot where I wouldn't have to harm any tree, because I love these trees, and part of the reason why I bought this property. I understand the concern of my neighbors. I don't want them to feel like I can see from my front door in their backyard. So I decided I would just listen to them for what they requested and move my house back to the front. I understand that most homes are being built right on top of the existing homes that are there because they don't really have a choice. Most lots are not as deep as this lot. If you were to build any home over not a compact soil, but rubble that you tried to compact, it is not the same as building your home in standard soil. This is what I read. This is what I heard from Carlos. This is what I've heard from from Jeff Day. This is why I just asked it to be just 10 feet away from the existing home. I'm really sorry this causes concern to my neighbors, and I hope they would understand.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Palatnik. Mr. Palatnik, have you talked to the neighborhood association?
No, the first time I've heard about it was a few days ago, and this is why I met with Mr. Carlos, and I heard what he said and my neighbor said. This is why I made my amendments. I would love to meet my neighbors who do share concerns.
And I'll make a recommendation. I'm not sure how the other commission members feel, but go ahead, Tim.
I got one question.
Yeah.
Jeff, if you're still on. Jeff, I have one question. If you're still on, if the concern is the compaction of that garage, could you put the garage in the back and then put the basement and every other part in and move the rest of the house up?
That really becomes a redesign, and if you guys want to take time to look at the design of the floor plan, I think you'll see kind of the flow and function makes the most sense. How we have it, we didn't want a front entry garage because that's not desirable, even though there's a slew of them through the neighborhood. And the back of the house, we really wanted to capture the park-like setting. In our mind, if you look at the back of the house, this is a fairly common layout, right? People have a big great room open to the kitchen. They usually sneak kind of a little breakfast room table in between the two. And, as Noah has mentioned, his family lives in his neighborhood. They all get together regularly. That's why you see such a big dining room. And, you want to capture that park-like setting. If I were the neighbors who spoke tonight, I wouldn't want to sit in my backyard and see a garage at the back of Noah's house, especially, as they had mentioned. They're right. These are beautiful backyards. These are, a series of trees, grass and whatnot. So it does feel park-like back there. We didn't necessarily feel as though it was shoved so far back that it was going to break that feeling. So, to forfeit the view out back to put the garage in the back, I think would be a foolish move. Certainly not the best end use of the lot, and that has obviously been, I think, verbalized by all of the folks that spoke tonight.
I think your comments make sense, and I think we got some heads nodding here, so we understand. But I think I would just try to make a suggestion that maybe you guys have some discussions with the neighborhood association. Maybe see if there's, something that, because it does sound like Mr. Palatnik really does want to be a good neighbor and work with everybody there. So maybe you can see if there's a good compromise, to balance the needs of everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea. To Noah's point, I didn't know there was a neighborhood association either. We were going with city codes, and everything we're doing is inside of city code, obviously, but can we still though review the design of the exterior or comment or approval?
I think, I think I don't want to speak on behalf of everybody else, but I'm seeing heads nod that the exterior is fine and everybody kind of likes it, quite frankly. And we could take a poll, without approving it, but take a poll if that would be acceptable. Tim? As far as the exterior design?
Absolutely, I approve. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Brian?
Yeah, no concerns, and the neighbors even commented if they liked it. So I think
Right.
I like your idea of getting together.
Yeah. And what was the question? About the exterior design, if you had any issues or concerns with the exterior design. And I did not either. I think it's very unique. It's very, it's nice. It's very interesting and I kind of like it. The only thing I was, no, I'm fine. So I would say maybe if we can work out, if you can speak to the neighborhood association, work out a good idea for that setback that balances with everybody. I think that would be the best thing. So Jeff or Mr. Palatnik, I'm not sure if you're still on. If, I think
Both on. Yeah, and I think Noah is more than happy to meet with everybody, and I'm certainly willing to join him and have those conversations.
Great, good.
Yes, I'm definitely willing and wanting to meet with my neighbors. I would say that actually, if you look at the house right now, you can see there is a walkout basement on the right side of the house. By moving my house forward, I actually gave it up. And now my basement will not be a walkout basement, which decreases the value of the house. I really tried to work with my neighbors in the short time that I had. And I just agreed to move the house as far back as I felt it's good for my property. I know we're working with code, but I understand that my neighbors have concerns and I would gladly discuss it with them.
I think that'd be great. And maybe even meet out at the site. So, you could even kind of mark out where the location is. That way, sometimes when you're on site and you can actually see it, it puts things in perspective with everything. Okay, great. So I think we're going to recommend that we defer this item until you guys can have that discussion. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And thanks for all the comments of the neighbors too. And hopefully we can come to a good resolution for that. So we'll move on to item number 6, discussion items. Item A is a discussion about the CDR in new subdivisions. Carlos?
Chairman, I'm going to ask that we defer that item. And there, I don't have anything drafted on that yet.
Okay, that sounds good. Oh, wait, and we might as well wait for Carol to come back.
Yes.
Apologize, Carol. Okay, so we're going to defer on item 6A and we'll move on to other business. Item A, meeting minutes.
And I did not prepare any meeting minutes for today's meeting.
No, that's no problem. And we'll move on to item B, reports. Carlos.
Go back to the shared screen here. Bear with me. Just a couple of items regarding the next scheduled council meetings. They'll have a work session July 6th, and then their regular meetings will be hosted on July 13th and July 27th. The city council will be opening. The city council has been meeting in person over the past month, beginning in July, specifically with the July 13th meeting. They will now be allowing public to meet at their meetings. So they will be doing the meetings hybrid where they would be in person in public and also through continued use of Zoom and the recording of these meetings. I'll let the council liaison kind of go into more specifics regarding other policies of people that attend those meetings and what would be required. There will be a coffee with the mayor also scheduled, and I don't have the date. I'll see if it will be July 14th, in which Mayor Clark will have as their guest the Great Rivers Greenway to talk about the Centennial Trail and that process. And I believe Director Mann of the Finance Department to update the public on our recent adopted budget. For the commission, we have our next scheduled meeting on the 15th. Again, it will be an in-person meeting, but I don't believe we'll be prepared or ready yet to have public in place. We'll have our August meeting scheduled on the 5th and the 19th. And then just a heads up that on September, the meeting schedules, the first meeting is on the 2nd, and the second meeting is on the 16th, which is the last day of Yom Kippur. So if we need to reschedule or have any considerations for that observation, let me know so I can let the petitioners know in advance. Absolutely. Pending petitions, we have the items that were deferred from this meeting, but possibly 7 Bond Price Terrace for a new single-family home, 9 Ramsgate Drive for a new single-family home, but that probably won't be until August. We're waiting for some the site or civil information to be submitted. And then in addition on Crabapple Court, that will be going to the Board of Adjustment next week first. On city events, again, we are opening our facilities further for the public. The public, when visiting City Hall for whether it's for courts, administrative, or permitting, we still require the mask policy. That policy will be different if you're attending a council meeting, though. Parks and Recreation, they continue with their summer camps, and then there's a lot of information regarding the community center and the Parks Master Plan implementation. I believe yesterday and today they were going over the park playground equipment and RP beds for those, and they have submitted for the building permit for the community center. So that's kind of exciting. On the other end, on the Old Bonham School, we have finished or finalized a review for the Old Bonham School. You've seen the fencing up. They should be starting on the construction anytime soon on there. On developments, just quick updates. The GRG Trail, we already talked about that, going through Warson Park. Olive Crossing, they will be scheduled at our next meeting regarding Lot 4 for the residential component. Right now, they're continuing channel work on that site. Ameren will be the next major utility that will start work, and then the MoDOT work would be commencing probably by late summer. Plant Haven Commercial Center, we've been in discussions with them. Right now, they're kind of in a hold pattern, both because of construction costs and also they've been in discussions with various tenants to anchor the facility along with the Plant Haven planting facility. City Center redevelopment area, now the of course known as the Oliver. It's pretty exciting because they got the second level pretty well framed. They'll be starting up on the third level. Some of the framing was starting to go up on the back end of the building. That will be a 4-story facility, so that's going to be neat to see. We have been in talks about trying to coordinate a meeting with them to start talking about the retail component and maybe kind of coordinating between Plant Haven, Easy Storage, and the city center, and kind of collaborate, like what their tenants and tenant mixes should be. So it's a good job for Don. So, and then if you saw yesterday, the fencing went up at the old Olivet 66, which will now be the Firestone facility. They should. We're still reviewing the demolition plans as we're waiting for the final utility disconnections to come in, but that should happen quickly. They are in a tight schedule because their goal has been to open by November, regardless of when they started construction. So it should be a pretty quick and interesting process as they bring that down. So it's exciting to see. Be glad to answer any other questions. I think I've covered everything on there. And Chairman?
No, that's great. I don't think I have any questions. Anybody else? Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, the council is Opening things back up to the public, will we be doing that?
I would prefer to wait till August and see how that goes. Council has been the lead, and we were not gonna, no other commission was gonna go before council on that. But other, again, kind of assess the comfort level and how everything works. Council will take the lead on that, so.
The guinea pigs. All right, good, good. All right. Missy?
Thank you very much. As usual, thank you all for everything that you do. The masking issue and allowing the public to come back in was not a majority decision. There is still some concerns. However, majority wins. So as of July 1, yes, we were allowing the public to come into our meetings with social distancing. I would prefer that they wear masks. The decision of the majority of the council was that if we don't wear masks, they don't have to, but let's deal with social distancing. And if there's a large enough crowd, then we'll be dealing with social distancing, and they have the other community room with which to be able to listen, watch, and be socially distanced. So hopefully things are turning around for everybody, but yes, as Mr. Trejo said, the council is taking that lead, and we will see what happens as we move forward. We're concerned about your comfort levels as well, ladies and gentlemen, so.
Are you, go ahead.
So if you open up for social distancing, can people still Zoom in or no?
Yes, Zoom. I don't know if Zoom will ever go away. Maybe use less, but people do travel. It is allowing for the capacity to participate. I do still believe, as I believed way back when, several years ago, when we began to talk about this, that, with the lifting of the emergency orders, you need to have a quorum. And, once we're all back to what is the new normal, I think we'll be able to have quorum and Zoom as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
I just want to wish the council wants to wish you all a happy, healthy Independence Day. Mr. Trejo did identify that on July 14th, 8:45 in the morning, you can attend live here at the community center, at the city center, and or by Zoom. But yes, Mayor Clark will have his first coffee with the mayor. And we'll be talking about all good stuff beginning to happen, GRG and the good things that you all voted and approved to help us build.
Very exciting times.
Yeah.
That's great. That's
Happy,
great.
healthy.
The only other comment that I had was if, Carlos, if you can give Mr. Palatnik the information to get in
Absolutely.
touch with the neighborhood association. I forgot to mention that at that last time, but I think that'd be helpful. Anybody else have any questions? Carlos?
Couple of things just to kind of go over with commission on their base, like on tonight's meeting. One, we are 2 members short. Of course, Mr. Brophy was out on vacation, and then we still have 1 vacancy. But given the spread that we have here, I'd like to know like everybody's comfort level. I think if we were back at a full 7-member body, Don and I would be fine to move down to kind of help everybody spread out a little bit. Missy, I'm not sure if you would want to too, but that would give us more space. This was a little closer than, and that's because I'm too short. So 2
Right.
people short, not short. So, but I don't know if any commission member thoughts or.
I don't have any strong opinions. Go ahead,
Okay.
Carol.
I'm just saying I'm fine.
Okay.
I've been vaccinated.
I would probably agree. It's worth just trying to keep. And this, to your point, like, I think we welcome people back. If we were to require masks, I mean, I think we could wear masks too, but that's my preference.
And one way to balance might be to, have a limit the occupancy, in the room too, as another means to make sure it doesn't get too close,
Bringing only people on topic or something like that.
potentially. Yeah.
And we talked about that the seating in here for council meetings will be spaced out in small groups, like 2 or 3 chairs, because people tend to come together in there, and then the facilities are capable to allow the community rooms down the hall to also be utilized, and the videos work on whatever's here, people can see there. So there's been that discussion. If we get to a topic or issue that gets us a full house. But we also understand, even pre-COVID, it was rare to get many people to attend. But we've seen, through Zoom in the past year that it's been it's been exciting to see that this many people actually attending.
More community engagement. I think people homes, because you have babysitting issues, time issues.
Absolutely.
And then when I travel for work, I call in on Thursday. I don't see why we go away unless it's a cost issue.
And then two other items, just because they came up today. The more difficult one is brick. Again, the intentions of the guideline were not to require brick. It was, if it doesn't meet the 50% threshold, I have to bring it to your attention. And the city has approved houses without brick, houses with all brick, and houses with minimal brick in there. And for me, it's hard to give guidance because we're always all over the place. But I think that's okay too, because we have that discussion with them. They're going to talk about your brick. You're not 50% brick in there. But again, in those discussions, make sure you talk to your trustees, and that's what was done for this one, and the trustees supported it. But yet, if there's a resident out there that, for whatever reason, isn't support, it's how do you weigh those and all that? And I think too that if somebody's not going to utilize brick, that maybe we need to, or even from a staff level, would appreciate the commission's assistances, and then give us more information on your materials, because it shouldn't be a vinyl siding house unless it's like a cake, it's part of the architectural design. But if you're not going to have brick, should we be looking more at drive it or a hardy board? That if you're not going to use brick, which we're saying is okay, then you should be using another quality material or comparable material. Make sure that we're not just getting. I think the concern from the commissioner, at least what I perceive, is it's more like, well, we're just going to get a vinyl siding house, where it could be. At least in my report, I'm not bringing up what those other materials are. I guess we can do that, but I didn't know if that makes it.
I think that makes a big difference. Like you said, the quality of the other materials. I do also think, kind of having, what's the, if we're trying to balance the neighborhood character, especially when it's a single house, in a well-established neighborhood, and you're coming in, it's always nice to have that balance in place. Maybe not 100%, but just kind of be reflective of the neighborhood, if that makes sense.
And in some cases, and the commission's comfortable with how the process is working, that's okay too. In there, I'm just never sure. And I'm trying. It seems like it's hard to find. I recognize my point. If somebody doesn't come in with 50% brick, to have that discussion with them, it's going to be brought up. Talk to your trustees, and it could be more. Talk to your trustees. Bring in the other materials or show it in there, and maybe that will kind of help.
I think you're hitting it on the head, is that you're expecting them to have something that's light and a little bit nicer, whether it's brick or it's a stone or it's hardy board, like you said. I think just looking for it, and every time it's come up, it seems like that this one was different because it's 3 light houses, but every other time it's come up because the fronts were not very nice. So that's the only time I've seen.
The other topic would be, again, we try to write all these codes to anticipate every possible scenario. And in this case, we have a minimum front yard setback, but would it be worthwhile in the future to consider an amendment that says, you have a minimum, but you can't go twice the max, create a maximum in there? Because again, the petition we saw today, I mean, there is, if there was no review process, no design review process, administratively, we would be required to issue that permit because there's no violation, there's no code violation. So it may be that, you know, that we have a minimum setback, of course, that's a very standard zoning procedure, but that it should not be in excess of 10% or 20% of that setback as a maximum.
Or, and if it's an exception, it comes to us to review.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
it would have given, it was a difficult discussion to have where, again, it was not a zoning violation, but it's more regarding the character of that neighborhood. If this was on Arbor, we will see some homes that are set back, you know, over 100 feet from the road. And that's okay because all the other houses are of equal depth. You know.
Do you think that's more of a neighborhood association to be
Well,
something in their indentures?
It is, but I would think that most of the indentures are written like a zoning code that nobody really anticipated. You know, they have the minimum, but we really don't think about the maximum much.
No, I agree, but you know, you know, the concern is trying to protect the neighborhood
Mhm.
feel. And I think the neighborhood might be able to do something, you know, to help support that, their opinions, you know, on
It is
on
possible.
situations like that. And maybe something else like a different style mailbox or, you know, things like that that I've seen people or other neighborhoods have that are reflective of that neighborhood feel.
Yeah, but if the neighborhood brings that forward as their rationale, that everybody else in the neighborhood is also this far setback. I mean, then we could consider an exception, but
I think the
But-
language, like,
I mean, the house at number 11, I mean, they're wanting to push the house initially back to the middle, you know, to the
Right.
other side of the lot. That's just happens that we happen to have deep lots.
Right.
But I don't know if anybody else really has lots like that shape that would enable anybody to do that. I mean, most of the time we're dealing with small lots.
Yeah, you're
in
right.
Comparison.
You're right. But I was thinking about other things besides, you know, the lot setback, but other neighborhood characteristics that some neighborhood might want to have.
Which takes me back to, you've heard me for years, which takes me back to the brick. These homes, if you go in Collingwood, just about every home was at least 50% brick, if not full brick. We understand what's happening today. Indian Meadows was 50% brick. I can't tell you how many homes you've given me that are siding. You know, the times that you've heard me say, why aren't we really addressing this 50% brick that's in our guidelines and pushing a little bit? You do it on the south side. You do it on the south side. I don't see it happening on the north side until you get into this. Well, this looks the same, and this looks the same, and this is the same. So now we've got 3 houses. Now we're going to push the issue because we need something a little different. And this is what I've heard from this board over and over and over again. And I'm getting what Carlos says. And I'm getting what you all say. But we still have a divide in this city as far as I'm concerned. In how you look at the materials you're willing to put on a house on the south side than the north side. And I'm very sorry that I feel this. And with regard to indentures, it takes money to enforce your indentures. Lawyers are not cheap. And we have to go to court to take them to court. And this is where we really would like the camaraderie and the collaboration of the board and the city with those subdivisions that are responsible with attempts to deal with their indentures and what we want to see built in our community. And I'm speaking right now, not as a council member, but as a trustee of one of the largest subdivisions, where I am right now trying to work exactly on some issues of old stuff, indentures from the 50s and things that are ridiculous. So it takes money to enforce the indentures. When these people send their emails in like the folks here, this is the way they feel they have their strength. And we do need to pay better attention. And I'm gonna tell you something, these home builders come to you, you say, I don't know if I'll get that much money when I sell this house. They're getting more money than they tell you they're gonna sell that house for. It always comes down to, how can I build it cheapest? And we're seeing it from Florida, and as my spouse says to me today, there are ways that these homes are built so cheap, you can walk right through them. So, those are my comments with regards to the indentures and what this body has to do, and the people that want the character of their neighborhood to remain the character of the neighborhood and accept tear downs.
Right. Those are good comments. And I do think as a board, we do try to ask, have you talked to the neighborhood association? Because I was a neighborhood trustee myself, so I share what you're saying, and we had to deal with potential litigation, and it's tough,
It's tough.
but-
People don't want to put the money in it. They want to complain to the trustees.
Right.
They want the trustees everything. And it really takes enforcement going to court.
Right.
And like this gentleman said in the subdivision, nobody wants to have a neighbor starting off like that.
Right.
But I'm curious too on Collingwood, they mentioned that it's already been sold. So they've sold it before the design's approved. So unless they're just saying they sold the lot, but it sounds like they've sold it. So
Yeah.
now us saying go back and figure this out and change it, now they have to go back and say, well, you sold this to me. No, we need to change it.
That's their problem.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm saying that like,
It's a valid point.
but it's like, I heard that and I'm like, well, yeah, sorry.
Well, that's the pressure they give on the board. That's the pressure back
Yeah.
to the board. Yeah.
But that's the same thing with the foundation on this job too. It's the
Exactly.
exact same thing that they're saying, well, they cost me more money to do it,
Yeah.
but that's the lot you picked.
Yeah, I mean, let's hear the violins.
That's-
Right.
or
I
you put the
didn't
garage in
choose
the
that
back if you
lot
wanna
for you.
save money, and put the garage in the back if you want to save money.
Right.
I mean, that's
It's-
why I
it's-
said that was,
Yeah, it's his footprint.
Yeah, it's a balance
Yeah.
between
you're right, yeah, I don't see really,
a good
It's
solution.
just like when
you know,
somebody
other
comes
than-
to us with a fence and they say, well, it's cheaper if I build it this way.
Right.
That's not what we said.
I mean, it's a permanent structure, for 40, 50 years in our community, if not more. And, we should make sure it's done to the best capacity and beautification to the neighborhood.
But in the only challenge, and I think you feel strongly with me on this, on the DEI side of it too, is like, I want to be careful that we're not pricing the community out, so we can only have people who can afford. I mean, I have friends who have just been like, I cannot believe on a bond that's gonna be $1.25 million homes on
Yes.
the
Right.
street. And that's a jump.
Gets you huge.
It's a jump. I'm not saying they're not worth it. I'm not saying, it's kind of a reflection of school system's great, it's great, we're building great things, and it drives people up. But I'll be honest, I do not want to lose the flavor. One of the best things, the reasons I moved here is because there's diversity. Because in my kid's school, there's diversity. That's critical to me.
Yes.
Socioeconomic and racial.
Yes.
And that's where I point back to my subdivision. I bought our house for $57,000. We have 4 homes in the area, sold 2 of them for over $350,000 in my own subdivision. And so it's kind of like you've all heard me say, I could not afford to buy a house in this city today.
Right.
It's a problem, a benefit, and everything all tied together.
Yeah.
And it's tough because it's a tough thing.
How do you wrap it all together and embrace it all?
And that's part of my challenge. I don't know if brick is that much more expensive than siding. I assume it is, built.
It's veneer. It's not brick anymore. It's
well,
veneer.
it's gotten cheaper, but it's still, it used to
Yeah.
be like this, now it's more like this.
So I mean, that's the tough thing too. It's like, builders want to make as much money because they're going to do more with a $1.25 million house than building a $250,000 house. The amount they're going to make. It's more exciting. So,
Good comments, guys.
Good
comments.
conversation and
Yeah.
good thoughts for you to look at with regards to the, like Mr. Hill said, the maximum setbacks, is that something? In my intention, I know there are setbacks in the street,
So do you have to approve your indentures? Do you have to, in your indentures, you have to approve this house before it comes to this committee?
No, but no, it does say that we're supposed to, you know, they're supposed to meet with us in view, and we're supposed to give their blessing and say yes, but that doesn't, you know, it will not impact the final decision that this board will make. But yes, when we do that, we all come out happier and with a better design. So it does work to have that connection with the trustees.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
works.
Okay, any other questions or comments at this time? Otherwise, I say we'll adjourn the meeting at 9:06.
No, not yet.